All right, good evening, everybody. So tonight we brought out a microphone so that way, everybody can hear what's the presentation. We learned that last time we presented that it didn't pick up quite as well in our audio video side, so we want to make sure we can do that. So like the last meeting we had, this meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be available on our website, YouTube channel, and social media pages tomorrow. Expectations for tonight. Allow for the whole presentation to be completed before asking any questions. And raise your hand, we call on with questions at the end. So we're going to go right on through. We got a full presentation we want to do, and then we'll take questions at the end. Please remember to treat everyone with dignity, care, and respect. Tonight's agenda. We're going to ask each one of these to take one moment and as I introduce them. The first one up is Paul Wills from Plante Moran-Cresa. So Paul, can you stand up and give me a bit about stuff? Sure.
Thank you, Superintendent Shaw. Again, my name is Paul Wills with Plante Moran-Cresa. I'm the partner in charge of the K-12 practice. For those of you who have heard of Plante Moran, a large management accounting consulting firm, but within Plante Moran, we have a group called Cresa, which is really over the last 25 years have helped over 70 districts go through strategic capital planning, go through the preliminary qualification process. We've done about $2.8 billion with some very, very large districts, such as Detroit Public Schools, Farmington Schools. We've also helped some of your neighbors, Bedford, most recently with IDA, and their capital planning and bond program going forward. My background is I've been with the firm for 20 years. I've worked with about all 70 of those districts going forward. And really in the last 18 months, I've worked with the Board of Education and the administration, taking a look at the 3 existing facilities. And we'll talk a little bit about the PQ application and qualification process. We were hired about 18 months ago to really look at what would it take to fix up the existing elementary, middle school, and high schools. We presented that to the board, I believe, about 14 months ago. We looked at existing funding mechanisms, general fund, Monroe County Tech Millage. We looked at potentially bond alternatives. And so at that point, we were really working with the board, says, okay, what are those alternatives of spending dollars at existing facilities? What would it take to potentially move on to one campus? Understanding enrollment, where it is just over 1,000 students. How can the district lower their operational dollars in terms of reducing their square footage? But more importantly, it's answered the same question I think a lot of community members had 50, 60 years ago is, how do we educate our kids differently going forward? So with that, I'll turn back over to Superintendent Shaw. But from our standpoint, over the last 18 months, we've just been very pleased to work with board members and the administration going forward.
Thank you. Also with us tonight is Carrie Blanchett from PFM. So Carrie, please come up for a moment.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Blanchett. I am a managing director with PFM Financial Advisors. We are the financial advisor for the school district, as well as many of the other districts in the county, and probably about 80% of the schools in Michigan. We also work as financial advisor for the county, the city of Monroe, most of the local units. It's our job to work with the district to determine how they're going to pay for capital improvements and debt issuance, and to help them prepare projections, and then eventually, if the bond issue were to pass, to proceed and assist them with selling the bonds and getting the most favorable interest rates. PFM is a national firm. We have offices throughout the country. I had the Michigan practice, which we started about 16 years ago. I've been doing this for 35 years. I've probably worked with most of the schools within the state.
Thank you. And then our last person is Matthew Heiser from from Thrun Law, and he's going to share how Thrun Law was involved with us. And this is our school attorneys that we use for anything school related.
Thank you, Andy. As Andy mentioned, my name is Matt Heiser. I'm an attorney with Thrun Law Firm. I'm here tonight on behalf of my partner, Chris Amarino, who's been working with the district on this bonding proposal. So Thrun Law Firm is really an education law firm. We assist school districts with all types of legal issues. I, along with Chris, work in our finance and elections group. So our job is to assist school districts in preparing the bonding proposal, the ballot question for the bond election, the resolution that the board adopted calling for the election. And if the voters approve the bonding proposal at the election, we would assist the school district in making sure that it complies with all the legal requirements necessary to issue the bonds. So thank you.
So now we're going to get right into the presentation, and so I'm just going to need Paul for this next spot. We wanted to go back to why we're here, and we're here tonight because, as Paul had already alluded, that we're needing to look at options for our schools, and we did that evaluation, and what we came back and what we're presenting is the plan of going K-12 under one roof. So that means we're going to be adding an elementary wing. The elementary wing is approximately 27,000 square feet. Has pre-kindergarten classrooms in there, has young fives, which is a program we started a year ago, and then our 3 sections of our kindergarten. 3 sections in general education, and this wing is a kindergarten or pre-K through 4 wing, and it has its tech room, so support spaces. Inside that wing, you'll find the elementary library. You're going to find that's where the restrooms are at. And so this is that elementary wing, and that's a pre-K through 4 wing onto our current high school. Middle school addition is 26,000 square feet. And you can see that's a 5/8 wing, and with a tech room and support spaces. And now one of the conversations we've been having, and you'll see this in a slide, is that a separate wing, or is that like in a two-story format? So you can see that in our slide a little bit, that is a 2-story format, where your 5th through 8th graders are on the main floor, high school is up above. 3 sections at the high school, along with tech room, science, and then support spaces. We keep saying 3 sections. Our school is designed right now, if you go through our buildings, for 3 sections. And we're sitting with about the elementary, 65 kids at grade level, get to the middle school, high school, climbs to 95 students with 1 grade level and over 100. So in this design, it's set for 3 sections, which that's how we are currently designed to have. So we can handle any kind of growth that could happen. Also, in this building addition is a 3-stage gymnasium. And the reason for a large gymnasium has to do with going under one roof. We're eliminating the elementary, we're eliminating the middle school gyms, and at most schools, the gymnasium is where a lot of activities are happening. You got both your classroom for the day, but then after school, we have a lot going on. We're putting in here also a walking track. It's a 2nd story level walking track, and that's part of our community push that we want to think of this in terms of community center. Cafeteria with stage. It's cafetorium, so it's either going to, what we're looking at is right now potentially keeping our current cafeteria area. It's a commons with keeping that stage, but you need a cafeteria. We're going to have 3 sections of lunch going on. You have an elementary lunch, middle school lunch, and a high school lunch. One of the questions that's popped up over time is, well, how do the kids move around? How do we make it so that the elementary students aren't moving when the high school students are moving? And that's logistics. That's just a plan, making sure that we have it set up so that movement isn't happening at the exact same time, where, for example, high schoolers are going off to lunch and we have elementary students leaving from art, music, or phys ed, or so forth. So it's just a item that we deal with and make sure we don't have that. We'd also have a media center for our middle school, high school area, and then offices that have to be incorporated here. Also in this site is renovations. Starting in the far back corner, we have our CT class, construction trades. That's a renovation. In this plan, when we talk about the renovation, that means anything that's asbestos is gone. So all the asbestos work is completed. The CT classroom, art, music, those spaces, it's new ceilings, it's new lighting, new electric, and we're addressing the heat. In the current gymnasium, all that gets addressed in there is the heat, electrical, and then the metal supports for the backboards, along with heat. That was it. So it's your heat, your light, and your heating. Interior, so we have doors. Trying to make so you have a brand new building, you need to make sure the doors, everything kind of matches as you're going through the facility. Plumbing upgrades to the system, HVAC, so that all systems are talking to each other, and furniture. Elementary and middle school in this current plan are demolished, and those two, that area over there, early conversations have been about making that into, selling it off as lots and for homes, or it can even get rezoned for something else. Parking lot will be sitting over here rather than the other side, and then we have movement of traffic out of here. New septic field, or working on the wastewater treatment plant, and so we've talked about that in the past. That area would have does get it's in the budget either for renovation or for new. And we've also talked and shared at the township level that if there is a way for grants or other mechanisms to make it so that city sewer can get here, that the district will put in their portion as far as what it would cost to redo and or put in a new wastewater treatment plant. Upgrade water service coming in, address any drainage issues that we have on our school grounds. Down here in the athletic area, dealing with new stadium seating and for home and away, track, football, baseball, softball seats, LED lighting at the baseball, softball area, track is resurfaced, and sidewalk and fencing at the, for all of our athletic areas. The sidewalks is vital. Now, and that comes at a cost of about $38 million. Now, one of the questions has always been is, well, there's stuff in there that we need to have or not. The only thing we've looked at that question that we're saying, oh, maybe that goes, is the lighting at the baseball, softball. So we were asked about it, and we're just calling it out. Our track is at near 20-year mark, and it's at that point where it needs to be resurfaced. But if you take into account right here, the seating on these two things and the track resurface, you're looking at $300,000 for athletics. So when we're really talking about the major expenses of our program, it's not in the world of athletics, ladies and gentlemen.
Actually, real quick, if you go back. So all the proposed projects that were, again, analyzed, presented to the board through various work sessions, there's actually a pre-qualification application process that the Department of Treasury requires. So it actually has 4 major components. The first one is, as Carrie mentioned, it's the financial projections. The second one is also from a legality standpoint, what is those allowable uses for capital? So again, this project, proposed projects were actually reviewed and audited by the Department of Treasury. They go through a pre-Q or pre-qualification process. You have to comply with certain dollar spends, so you can't spend $250, $300, $400, $500 a foot. They keep you within a parameter. But again, they go line item by line item for every single project to make sure that you're spending those allowable dollars. So there's additional scrutiny that the district has to go through by going through the Department of Treasury.
Thank you. So what we've mocked up is a high-level look at what it could look like. Now, this isn't for sure how it will end up being. Because once the bond will get passed, then they really, SSOE is a company that we've hired as an architect firm, now they really begin to dive into it. But what you're looking at is a true square footage matched up to our high school square footage. So if you're wondering about what the sizes of it looks like, this is what it would be. So when you come in, you see the secured vestibule. So it's a one single entrance in and out of the building. Elementary wing is separated so that it's, again, it's all by itself. Middle school, high school, middle school is on the main floor, high school on the second story. We have the commons area, which currently right now is our cafeteria and dining hall on the other side. When kids enter a academic area, that academic wing, that's where they stay. So we get into the conversation around, well, we got the, like in our high school currently, you have movement going on at all times. Here, when a student enters that academic wing, the only reason they're going to come out is go to art, music, phys ed. If it's a high school student, to the career CTE classroom or to lunch. There's no really other reason for our kids to come out of their academic wing. So when we get into the conversation around, well, you know, are the high school kids going to be intermixing with the elementary students? The answer is no. because there's no cause for the kids to come out of those academic wings, and so we can control that. Gymnasium, that new gym would sit over on this end. Again, our job then is to work with SSOE, should this pass, and work to make that budget work so that we can deal with the square footage and put it all in there at that cost. As we've shown in the past, what that impact means at 6.26 mils, we've had a sinking fund that has sat out there for the last 6 years. For the last 6 years, our taxpayers have been paying 2 mils on it, and so our average home sits somewhere right in this range right here between $60,000 and $75,000 of taxable value. An increase of 4.26 mils, or a $255,319 increase, or for a total annual cost of $375 to $469 at 6.26 mils. And so that's the impact onto the taxpayers. Now, we're going to get into, Carrie has, this is her part.
So school funding is, I'll call it not wonderful in Michigan. Yeah, since, well, really, in general, it's not wonderful because, you know, schools are funded through school aid and, you know, the local property taxes that non-homesteads pay. The 18 mils goes to that school aid formula. And generally, schools fund their capital improvements either through a sinking fund millage, like the school has been doing for the past several years, or through a bond issue, or a combination of both. Because otherwise, it would have to take money out of the classrooms to put into the capital for the infrastructure. So generally, anything that's of any major improvement that's required to capital ends up being voted as a voted bond issue. Because that's really the only way for our Michigan K-12 schools to fund these capital projects. And the way they do that is they put something on the ballot, a bond issue on the ballot, and, you know, we call it voted school bond issues. And the ballot will say, shall Mason Consolidated Schools issue an amount not to exceed, in this case, $38 million for the purpose of, and it has to describe what their purpose, what they're going to use that money for. And that is the legal part of the ballot. Now notice, I said not to exceed $38 million. I know if you've been at any of these meetings, Superintendent has been very clear that they will only issue the amount that will produce a millage rate of 6.26 mils. So as things happen at the landfill, I'm going to get to that in a few minutes, there'll be a decision made if the voters approve this issue before the bonds are issued on what reasonable projections are to produce that 6.26 mil debt levy. And that is what they'll issue in the bond amount. There'll be a part in the bottom of the ballot that you'll see that is estimates, and those are estimated millage rates that will have that 6.26 mils that we're projecting that it will cost in millage to pay for the $38 million in bonds. It will say 6.26 mils will be the first year's millage. I believe the average millage was 6.26 also, because it's over that whole 30-year period. It will have the maximum term that any of the series of bonds can be outstanding, which is 30 years in this case. And then at the bottom, it'll have a description about the school bond loan fund. The district is not anticipating borrowing from the state loan program for this. So all that will say zero on there, that there's zero loans outstanding, zero interest expected on any loans from the state. But you'll see that on the ballot. But really, this is the only real way a Michigan school has to finance any type of sizable capital improvement. because otherwise it would have to take it from its general funds, and that means it wouldn't have money to pay the teachers to teach their kids.
So from our last meeting and from information through, oddly enough, Facebook, there's questions generated. So these are the questions that we will be answering over the next few slides. What is the taxable value for Mason Consolidated Schools for 2019 without the landfill taxable value increase? So that's going to be addressed next. Again, that is for 2019. We already knew in 2018 what that number was, at 233 million. In a moment, we're going to share with you, without the landfill taxable value increase, what would 2019 be? Followed up by, has the district reevaluated the amount available based on a lower taxable value growth? So we were asked to look at, okay, rather than having a conservative 2% growth, what does it look like if it's less? So that's what we're going to show you next. Have any new businesses been added into the taxable value increase per year? What grants are available to the district for this project? And are there state grants to pay for the construction of new buildings like that in Ohio? That will be addressed. And then how is the PQ application created? So those are the questions we'll be answering right here next.
So this is just a summary table that takes you back in time from when the preliminary qualification application was first put together. And it had the $38 million bond amount, which was based on a tax base which was certified by the local units in the county at $291.95 million. And we used a 2% annual taxable value growth rate, and we used rather conservative bond interest rates, even at that time, of 4.65% for the first series and 4.75% for the second series. Fast forward to finding out that the landfill was overvalued, and the landfill appealed. This was after the preliminary qualification application was filed. We came up with some additional numbers, I think that went over at some of the meetings between now and then. I think we used $247 million, and that was questioned further. So it was just backed out fully, or to the new set of numbers, which we're using a taxable value of $237.5 million. And using a taxable value growth rate instead of 2%, 1.5%. And we're using current interest rates on Series 1, which is 2.37%. And for Series 2, because that's another year away, I wouldn't want to project it at current rates, so we're still using a 4% interest rate on that. And in that scenario, the district could issue the full $38 million at the 6 point, all these are at 6.26 mils. And what I would remind you is that the district doesn't plan on issuing Series 2 until a full year, year and a half from now. So it's going to have another whole full year of tax base known at that time. So there'll be chances at that time to further adjust the bond amount if need be.
So that $237 million reflects this for the landfill, $1 million. That's landfill.
And
that's
I should
no
say,
increase. That's not getting into the debate about what is there going to be a settlement? That is $1 million on the landfill from 2018.
and we actually phased that full $1 million out over a 10-year period. So it's zero at that 10th year.
So in a couple of slides, you'll actually see how we, because people have asked, well, what's going to happen with the landfill? Landfill goes, what's that going to do on our taxable values? So we took and said, all right, we will accept. So we're not gonna get into debate about, well, is there a taxable value there or not? Nope. In 2018, 2019, taxable value is $1 million. Over the next 10 years, we'll phase out the landfill. And so whatever happens with the landfill will be a bonus. So these numbers right here reflect that change. So you want to walk through it?
Sure. So the next one we're calling option 1. That's what happens if interest rates go up between now and after the bond election were to pass. And it's now 3% interest rates instead of 2.37%. Well, the district could only issue $34,645,000 and still stay at that 6.26 mils. And what I've heard Superintendent Shaw say at least 20 times, I think, in front of me, is he has no intention of issuing more than the district can issue within the 6.26. So then what happens, and that's using the 1.5% growth rate. If we were to take that and increase the taxable value growth rate to 1.75%, then that amount goes up to $35.81 million. If we take it a step further to 2% taxable value growth rate, you get to a $37.06 million bond amount. So it's just a little bit higher based on growing your taxable value growth rate. But your 1.5% taxable value growth rate is relatively conservative, extremely conservative, and that's getting you to about a $34.6 million bond amount.
And remember that that we do have in reserve $1.5 million from our sinking fund. So for example, we elected to make sure to go to what we're calling the extra ultra conservative method right here, add $1.5 million to that from the from the sinking fund, along with our TAC fund of almost $500,000. So you take that $2 million, it's just $36.5 million. We're asking for the 38, but we would have to make it do. Again, we're looking at making sure we honor what's on the ballot there.
So another thing we're asked all the time is, what is this going to mean to me on my own taxes, and how are my taxes going to go up every year? Well, with Proposition A, it limited how much your taxes could go up, how much your taxable value could go up, and really how much your taxes can go up too. And so your taxable value is limited to go up each year by the lesser of 5% or the CPI that the state publishes, Consumer Price Index. So in 2020, for this new tax bill that you should be getting, the cap on that increase in your taxable value is 1.9%. Last year, to the 2019 year, it was 2.4%, and the year before that, it was 2.1%. So if you've done nothing to your house, no additions, no changes, you're still living in your house, that means your taxable value can only go up by 1.9%. Now, if you were to move out of your house and someone else bought your house, likely they're going to have probably a fair amount higher taxable value than you are, because if you've lived in your house since, for 10 years, you've had that limit every year. So when that house is uncapped, it actually benefits everyone in this room, because it adds more value, total that taxable value, onto the school district's tax base. And every year, when they compute what millage rate is needed to pay for that debt service, to the extent that taxable value goes up more, like if you were to get a new business that had, let's say, the whiting plant, someone bought that property and some business went in there and your taxable value increased by $20 or $30 million. They're required by law to only levy what they need to pay the debt service. So if that's 6 mils, they can only levy 6 mils. So as that taxable value goes up, it benefits you overall.
So quick question, Carrie. So looking at this 1.9, we're gonna go back to this screen right here. If the district chose to stay with this kind of an option there of 1.5, what would that mean on the taxpayers when CPI moved 1.9%? but yet we're selecting this 1.5 right here.
Their millage rate would be lower.
So instead of 6.26 mils, it goes down.
Right, and I think I put an example in a later slide, but on this one, so I think we threw in an example here. Your taxable value was $60,000 in 2019. When you apply the 1.9% maximum increase, that means your new taxable value would be capped at $61,140. So.
Now that CPI number right here, by the way, too, where does that come from? Is it by school district? Is it by county? Is it by?
State.
It's by the state.
Right.
So every district,
And if you go on this website here, it'll actually give you a history of the CPI over all the years, and it'll actually give you a lot more information on this property.
So again, like if we would have gone back and done something, for example, like in 2017, staying at like the example of the 1.5% growth rate model, our taxpayers in each of these years, that amount that they would have had to pay would have kept going down.
Right.
Thank you.
So on this one, what we are showing is just what the impact of changes in the district's taxable value is over time. So this is what we're estimated the bond payment. We just took the first 5 years of the bond payment schedule, or the 30-year bond payment schedule. And as you can see, it increases each year because we're building it around a taxable value growth rate. So you see here that 237.5 million, that's the taxable value we're using without the additional increase. It actually came out to something a little bit higher. I rounded it down. And even though I'm saying 1.5% growth rate remember I said we're phasing out the landfill? It comes out to be about 0.05% for 3 years and then 0.06. But to be conservative, we've used 0.05. So we're using for the first 9 years a phase out, so we're using 1.45 in this case. And as you can see, it just comes out to a millage rate each of those years of 6.26. Now, if the taxable value grows higher than that, that millage rate is lower. So for example, in this middle column, if a new property came in, like the whiting plant property, if something located in that property, and the taxable value went up by $10 million, or I'm showing 5%. The district would have to lower its debt millage rate to 6.05 mils because it can only levy what it needs to pay the debt service. In the bar column there, I'm just showing you what it would look like keeping those same bond payments if the actual taxable value growth rate was 2% each of those years. So it's just slightly less than the 6.26, but it goes down each year. And I didn't update this from when my colleague Nate was here, so if I actually were to bring it in as of today, I don't know who's been watching the news from the coronavirus, but interest rates went down even further. So they're quite a bit lower than this right now, and if you would have asked me if that was possible, I would have said no. But the point here is, these are interest rates, municipal bond interest rates. It's the national high-grade bond interest rates. And the bar represents the range that they've been over the past 10 years. The black line is what the current rates as of January 19th were for every year, for the 1-year maturity, 2-year, all the way up to the 30-year maturity. And as you can see, we're at the low point. If I were to take a snapshot of today, we'd be even lower. The blue, like mid blue or light blue, was what they were in January of 19. So that you can see that they were a fair amount higher. And the orange is the average over the past 10 years. But the point of this graph is to say it's a really, really favorable time to be doing this. So you can actually afford to finance a lot more. And I know I'm not saying 6.26 mils is a lot of money. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that it's a really favorable time to be financing right now.
So one of the things we'd asked, thank you very much. So one of the things we'd asked from Carrie, her company they provided was, on all three of these options, what does it look like from an interest rate total? So for example, if the Board of Education elected to go with option number 1 right here, the ultra conservative approach, that one right there, again, you see that generates $34 million, almost, $34.5 million. The interest on that one right there is $23 million. If we elected to choose the one where it's at, right here, at the 1.75 increase, that interest rate, again, that would generate the almost $36 million, and the interest cost in 30 years on that one is $25.5 million. And if the board elected to use the 2%, again, it's still a conservative number, that one right there would generate $36 million, almost 37 million, and that interest rate's at $28 million. So when the Board of Education, should this passes, we'll start to really look at that, because again, we understand on the taxpayers, what does it mean? How much? And see, we're taking its estimates. We can't come out and say, get it exactly this, because just as she just said today, interest rates drop more. We don't know, so we're using conservative approaches to what that may look like. This first one right here at 3% is us looking to sell that first series in the August time period. So again, we're just looking at right here, an ultra conservative approach, $34.5 million at $23 million. You're looking at something that's $57 million, I think, total, $57.5 million over 30 years. So that would be what's paid there. So a question that had been asked before was, what was the taxable value if we took and looked at 2019 without the landfill? We've done that. We pulled out the landfill, it's $1 million. Did we take and reevaluate based on taxable growth rate? We've shown you 3 different options of taxable growth rate. We also showed you that over a 10-year period, the landfill will disappear. It's making it so it is gone. Now, we're not going to stand up here and begin to speculate anything on the landfill, but we're showing that over time what that would do. New businesses. We did not put new businesses in here. We showed an example right here. If something happened, more homes were built, new businesses came in as an example, but in the original document that we're actually looking at, and if we're staying right here in that first column, for example, we're not looking at any businesses coming in. We're staying put with the idea that we have our home values. Even though we know there are businesses going to come in the door, we know that, and how we're really looking at the landfill right now, ladies and gentlemen, is this way. 2018, it had its taxable value. We've established that number, we're staying with it. So now when it's all said and done, it gets its reassessment, those are bonus years. For however long the landfill is here, whatever was done, bonus years. And then we know that our marijuana grow factory plant, we know that the solar panel field, the assisted living center, those are all going to happen. Those are bonus years. There'll be something, can't be 0, unless a tax abatement was given. And we're not privy to that, so we're going on an expectation that it's over in the far column, and there's limited growth. Next question that popped up was, what grants are available to the district for this project? And are there state grants to pay for construction of new buildings like that in Ohio? So there's a school safety grant out there. And in the state of Michigan, school safety grants have been out since 2015. You're permitted to apply for those for up to $50,000 per building total. And so what I mean by that is you go get $20,000 for your high school one time, go back and get $30,000 later for it. So total is $50,000. Cannot be applied to new construction, but you could apply the school safety grant to any part of our existing high school and apply for that one. The other is E-rate. We know that we're going to receive some monies in E-rate. We already know too that Consumers Energy will be giving us a rebate by making these changes. Cannot give you that dollar amount. All I can say is that those things are going to happen. And in regards to any other grants that might be sitting out there, the legislature right now, they're going through the budgetary process, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to give this one to Paul. As far as you've been in this business for 20 plus years, have you had anything in the world of grants for construction projects in the state of Michigan?
So we actually have, most of those grants are anywhere from $10,000 up to $500,000. We did have a university get a $40 million grant or donation from Mike Illich, Wayne State University. And Michigan State, they had the Bro donation. U of M has the Stephen Ross Foundation grants. Skillman does have some for education. Again, they're applied for, but they usually are typically in that $25,000 to $50,000 range. And I think, as Superintendent Shaw said, Consumers does have a very good energy rebate system. So by replacing the antiquated mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems in the 3 facilities, we've actually been able to generate really hundreds of thousands of dollars of those rebates when a district takes on these types of capital improvements getting into that one facility. So.
Andy, I think there was a question specifically on whether Michigan has anything like Ohio.
Yes.
We also have an office in Ohio, so we're somewhat familiar. I don't personally work on the Ohio work, but I do know they have a program where they did take, I believe it was a part of their tobacco settlement revenue, and they do subsidize capital for their schools for their lower income level school districts. So they are, and there's a number of states throughout the country that have some type of subsidy for capital for schools, but Michigan does not. So, and like I said, I've been doing this for over 35 years and they haven't that whole time.
So now this last question gets into, the PQX. So I'm going to have Paul go ahead and start with that, and then I'll hop in with it.
Thank you, Superintendent Shaw. As I mentioned, the state of Michigan does recommend that school districts start a planning process for strategic planning 12 to 18 months before any contemplated election. So again, I commend the district and the board really 18 months ago, really take a hard look at those facility costs, understanding that you had a current sinking fund, understanding that that sinking fund would not be able to support, as Carrie mentioned, multi-million dollars, even if it's a entire roofing project or mechanical system overlays. The document I have in my hand is actually the Department of Application that was reviewed again by Treasury. It's over 30 pages. What it does have in it is a certificate. So again, as Ms. Blanchett mentioned, it talks about the ballot, it talks about the millage rates, it talks about the estimates that were provided from the municipalities, which are incorporated in the financial summary. This is a 2-series bond. So I think the district very widely said we're going to issue a smaller amount first, get some of the foundations of the site work going as you start to make some of those decisions of, do I want full exterior brick? Do I want brick up to a certain point, and then maybe there's some exterior finishes systems? What kind of roofing system? So going through that design process to make sure you are hitting those budgets. There was a question, I believe, at municipality, what guarantees do we have that it's 38 million or 35 million? I commend Thrun Law firm making sure that the contracts for the architects, contractors, ourselves are geared to, you have to stick to this budget. If it is not at that budget, there's multiple check-ins with the Board of Education at schematic design, design development. There's cost estimates within each of these projects. So how much does it cost to renovate the existing spaces? What are those dollar amounts? Again, we've been doing this for 25 years, over 70 districts. We have a database of about 400 facilities that we've done over the last 15, 20 years. I think in the November election, between ourselves, PFN and Thrun, there's about $600 or $700 million of debt service issued on behalf of districts as their funding mechanisms. They talk about building utilization. So again, not building too much, but not also building too little. I think the district is really looking at more spatial layouts of how does that really fit onto the site? What types of improvements do we need to make for the infrastructure in terms of parking lots and safety and security? And then lastly, there is the overall cost summary, which again details out, and then I believe Ms. Densmore from the state has already come in and toured the facilities. Not yet. So she will do that because at the end of the bond, it actually gets audited once again by the Department of Treasury. The district auditors will also audit through the construction audit as they go through this process. There's a lot of checks and balances going through the state of Michigan Department of Treasury application process. I know at the board members, so again, this is our 23rd presentation, I believe, to the board over the last 18 months. So at the end of the day, this is a very, very in-depth document. What the things you will not notice is not full-blown drawings or elevations. What the state doesn't want you to do is spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, no offense, Lance, in terms of designing facilities if the bond doesn't necessarily pass. So again, they're looking at spatial allocation, square footage, and then ultimately how does it tie into the finances going forward. So 18 months of work, again, certified by the state, approved by the board, And this is what you see on the elections.
So remember, preparing for tonight, we're questions that are sent to me, things, again, going back to how Facebook has been operating over the last few weeks. And so questions that come out of there around the PQ app and what was on the app and what had the district done. And so when the district took and went to Treasury at that time, we were unaware of anything going on with the landfill. We knew that the landfill had been reassessed, but was there anything else happening? Was there any further movement? It was at January 23rd, when I was in Luna Pier, that it really got disclosed to me that the landfill had something going on with it, to the point where now it's in the negotiation phase, and everything had gone off and sent off to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. On the 24th, and we've said this again in multiple meetings, on the 24th, we came back, went to work to go, okay, what is actually going on with the landfill? What's the degree of the issues with it? And on February 3rd, that Monday, I met with leadership from Luna Pier, LaSalle, and Erie Township to go over what was going on with the landfill, what was going on with the taxable values of the landfill. We'd already been working with PFM on changing that taxable value. And remember what Kerry said early on, we had 291 million as the first number. That was what was certified. The next number, we moved it down to 247. And as you see today, we moved it down further because we wanted to take away all of the, what I've been calling rabbit holes we've been shot down to get down to, okay, let's go right down to the bare roots minimum of it. And so from there, like I said, the question would come up, and think, okay, well, what could be around that PQ app? Why is this one jumping out there? Because the numbers are certified. And so yesterday, in talking with Carrie, I said, Carrie, what could it be? And can I borrow that, please? And so the only thing, when I sent it to her, she goes, well, Andy, the only thing that could be on here, because everything we've been dealing with taxable values, we've been dealing with landfill, is on here pending material tax appeals in the district. Okay? That could be a little, maybe it's that one right there. So at that time, when we applied for, we put this application in, there wasn't one. See, we receive in our school district, just like everyone else, as a tax entity, they receive documents from the townships, from the city, as far as the taxing goes. And they come in, they come to our board secretary, and I was starting to think about it, and have a conversation with our board secretary going, did we receive any kind of notification from our township on this? And through hers and my conversation, we did not and cannot recall seeing any kind of letter. I go, well, that's not going to cut it. So what we've been doing, and I go back to this on a regular basis, ladies and gentlemen, is we constantly keep going back to figure it all out. There's more. Back on that January day, January 23rd, walked out of that meeting from Luna Pier very clearly knowing that something was going on, and we better figure out more, and that's what we've done. We came back and we made contact with our ISD, saying to the ISD, going, did you receive any kind of a notification from Erie Township in regards to the landfill? And they came back and said, yep, we did. And I said, well, what's the date on that? November 14th is when the letter was constructed. 2 weeks after we had applied everything. I go back to the point of this. The moment this school district became aware that the landfill was reassessed at a very high number, we began doing what, Carrie?
Adjusting.
And we've been adjusting. We've been adjusting. And so when we get asked, what have you been doing? What are you aware of? I keep going back. We're going to go back to this one slide because this is one of the big questions that popped up. Sorry. Was looking right here at this option. That interest, what's that growth rate going to be? So we started really figuring that one out. Well, what's that taxable value going to be? 237 million. What's landfill taxable value? It's $1 million. What's going to happen in 10 years when that thing closes up? Well, if it closes in 10 years, here's what's going to happen. So we've done everything that's been asked of us. And when it, like I said, when it came down to looking at that landfill, looking at the PQ app, going, well, what's there? We filled out that application based on the most current knowledge that we had at the time. And so, like I said, but because I wanted to make sure we did our due diligence, We dug in and talked with our ISD to discover that that letter did, went to them on November 14th. Was when it's mailed. So we're always about making sure to bring full disclosure. So what we're going to get into next is questions. And so I ask for you to raise your hand and we'll call on you. We will do it this way though. We have some people that had our first time here and see new faces. So I'm going to make sure to call on them first. So if there's any questions, please, let's get your hands up. We'll go to work on them.
Hi, so I came to an early meeting, like, just found out about it in here, and then I listened to the last one, and then obviously here today. So the first one I was at, our taxable value was 291 million, and you said we were doing this at 4%.
Okay.
Then at the last meeting online, there was argument about what the taxable value is. So it was 247 million at 2.75%. Now today, we're at 237.5 million at 2.37%. So every time the numbers change, you keep saying you gotta refigure it, the numbers, but you keep lowering the interest rate.
Yep.
And I don't get it,
Yep.
because, I mean, the interest rate should be what it is. I think 4% is high, but
So
I don't think we can make the interest rate whatever we need to be at 6.26. I mean, we're making the interest rate be what it is to be at 6.26 the first year in every scenario.
So she was showing if we sold that bond today, it's 2.37 interest rate.
Right,
Here is 3%. Okay?
right.
And so so we're showing what it would generate. Now, what we've been coming right out and saying is this. In August, again, to maximize the dollars, what is that interest rate at that time? Okay? And then we're projecting a year out for it to be at 4% when we go for that second series. So if it's higher than this, now we're going to have conversations with PFM because we're going to work to stay at that 6.26 mils. So it may mean that number has to go down. Okay?
Right.
So what we're showing is that, again, we can say, okay, 3.5% is going to be this number. Like you're saying, well, you go 4%, which seems to be high. So that's why we're just saying that if in option one, because it's moving target, 3% is what this option right here.
The commitment's to get the 6.26 or lower.
So we're not just purposely changing interest rates. If I back up to the pre-qual, I wasn't using 4%, we were using 4.65%.
Well, I know,
So-
but you have each meeting, I mean, I watch them here, I mean, if you keep moving the interest rate down. I don't know why the interest rate just ain't like, why isn't it just, let's say, 3%? Why
We
do
are.
you keep moving it down?
All these are 3%.
Well, I know that, but it's not,
Because I was asked,
it's 2.73.
what would you, okay, the question that was asked here is, could we do the whole amount based on current interest rates? And the current interest rates are 2.37%, and you could do the full amount. I'm not playing with interest rates. That is what it is. Summerfield's interest rates that sold last week, was it? And there's a little bit shorter, 1.8 something percent. I have it in my thing, I can go over and get them if you really want them. So even the 2.37, I still have a little buffer in there. But I was asked a question, so this is the answer. Yes, you can do it, Andy. At the current rates, you can do the full amount. But I'm not going to stand up here and say to you guys that I can guarantee after the election that the rates are going to be what they are today. So we have these 3% options. And that's also why we said we're not comfortable projecting next year's series at 3%. We want to use a 4%.
I get what you're saying. I just find it a little alarming to keep lowering interest rates to meet the numbers. And I'm not, I mean, you.
Well, we're not lowering, we're also taking away taxable value, remember? So we all
Right,
met.
and I also have a question about that. You said it was 1.9, growth rate. 1.9 growth rate. You said that's what where do you get that number from? The county?
The state,
The
the
state?
state. If you go on this website,
So I was at South Township today, and their, growth rate for 2020 is 1.091 for 2020.
no, it's, you must be on the whole, I
I
mean,
got a paper for it.
for your particular property.
Yeah, so I don't know.
So
I mean,
you're,
are you matching our community or just the whole state of Michigan?
the whole, so every individual property cannot go up by more than 1.9%. So have you been in your house? Have you been in your house for a long time, or is it
I
really?
have other properties, but could it be less?
It could be less, yes.
So there could be properties that are less.
So if you, for example, if you moved into your house recently, and your assessed value is close to your taxable value, there could be a chance that your assessed value becomes your taxable value, because your assessed value cannot be higher than your taxable value.
So our growth rate could be less than that.
Yeah, but go and look at the history and
Right.
I live in Monroe County, so I know the area very well.
I'm just saying, I don't think our 2% growth rates are a reasonable amount for our community.
Right.
So that's why I brought up the point right here of looking at that. So we had to create scenarios of what are the true options. Because remember, when the taxable value, that whole thing happened with the landfill, that changed, that became the variable that we had to really deal with. And so in this last meeting, we finally just said, you know something, we're gonna take it all the way right down to what it was in 2018, eliminate all the headaches, and whatever happens with the landfill, happens with the landfill. So we said, okay, what can we do if, the taxable value right here of the district, at a 1.5% growth rate, at 3% interest. Now, we could have moved that interest rate up and said, okay, it's gonna be 3.5 when we sell it in August. But we said, okay, at 3%, knowing where it's sitting right now, and 1 year later at 4%. What does that mean? It means that's how much money would be available, okay? Because remember, we're willing to honor, we're going to be honoring the 6.26 mils. And I think if the attorney needs to overstate this. The $38 million on the ballot is the maximum that the school district can pull. It's not required to take the whole thing. And the board, we've had many conversations around that. What we want to do is I'll show you options. And again, this is where the board has to have the conversation. Do they believe that they should go with the ultra-conservative approach of a 1.5% growth, a moderate conservative approach of 1.75, or a conservative growth rate of 2? So if they say, oh, no, we want to hang right here, then Carrie will keep that in her calculator, in her computer, and that's what we use. And so when we get to August, and this is all the behind the scenes stuff we start to really work out. This first series is at $15 million, and the second series is the remaining amount of money. But the calculations begin to get figured out going, if interest rates are down where they're at right now, does it make more sense to pull more money ahead than later, knowing that it could jump? So those are all things that we need to do as a board to get to the maximum amount of money we can get to for this project. What we've been asked for is, can it be paid for? Okay, what does it do? Because we've been dealing with the cap. Oh, this cap, the cap can move. How much is that cap going to move up at 1.5% growth? Not counting any businesses coming in. So it can. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, the housing market could tank again at some point in time. But the point we're saying is we've said right along, we will try and show you everything that is possible, and that's what we're saying right here. Here's your options as a school district. Now, what we want to be able to show though today is if this bond passed, and we went, it had already passed, and we went to get our first loans, could we make it happen to generate $30 million? And the answer is yes. And that's even keeping a 4% interest rate 1 year from now. So we're just trying to show those options right there. So, yes, sir.
So my first question is, the 1.9% maximum, I just want to clarify, the township does not have to charge you that 1.9%.
It's not something that the township does, it's an automatic computation that
So you're saying my tax bill will go up 1.9% no matter what?
your assessor
From
makes
2019.
computation, there's no assessor here, is there? But, are you assessor? Please explain.
Assessment
how it works.
The state of Michigan issues TPI every year. We have to take that TPI and for our taxable value. This year it was 1.9%, last year 2.1, and the year before it was 2.4. Your taxable value, as long as there's a gap between your assessed and taxable, it's going to be inflation every year. Now it goes down, if for some reason something goes down and the assessed and taxable meet, then the taxes could go down. Your assessed value and taxable value could go down. But for the most part, even if it starts going down here, your assessed value, your taxable value is going to go to rate of inflation so they meet. So you're going to get that 1.9. Everybody in the state of Michigan is getting that. Unless you get uncapped, because you purchased the property last year, it transferred, and gets uncapped to the state board, that is what the state said. That helps.
Yeah, but if my house is increasing at 2%, and you're only increasing at 1.9%, you're only making 1%.
Well, the assessed value, whatever the market is. So the assessed value is right in the city, I think the city, the assessed value of houses average 6%, 5 to 6% increase for residential properties. So those went up, tax bill only went 1.19. So the market's been really strong since 2012, it started rebounding again after 2007. So now the gap is getting greater between the assessed and taxable. So the assessed value can go up to about 10 to 20%. It's not. Your tax bill will go up.
And then my second question is, if you don't take the full 38 million, like option one right there, you still have $3.355 million left of that 38 million. 15 years from now, can somebody take that 3.355 million and buy another bond to get us up to that 38 million?
That's your question.
Yeah, so the answer is yes. So the way the bonding proposal works, so I'm sitting here and I want to make sure that everybody understands, there's a difference between a bonding proposal and a millage proposal, okay? So a millage proposal, before I get into the bonding proposal, a millage proposal is like the non-homestead operating millage that the school district has. And the school district will ask voters, because all school districts have them, to renew its existing operating millage. So I don't know what the district's operating millage is, but let's just say it's 18 mils. So when that's about to expire, the school district will ask voters to renew its authority to levy 18 mils on the taxable value.
On homestead.
Only on non-homestead property. For operating purposes. And that money can only be used for operating purposes, okay? So this bonding proposal is different. And I think it's been made pretty clear, but I just want to make sure that everyone understands. With the bonding proposal, and you'd see it in the ballot proposal, I'm looking at it right now, but what you're doing is the school district is asking the voters to authorize it to issue not more than $38 million of bonds, in this case, to pay for certain types of improvements. And there's a general project description, kind of an addendum paragraph in that proposal. And then there's more detail about the project in the PQ after the preliminary qualification application that Paul referred to, okay? That's the extent of the proposal. If the voters approve it, the school district has the authority to issue $38 million worth of bonds, and it can only use it for the purposes described in that proposal. So I tell you that to make this point. All of the millage information that you'll see in the proposal, the 6.26 mils, the first year millage, the 5.8 mils, the average annual millage, all of that, and you'll see in the proposal that says for informational purposes only, okay? So it's just estimated information. It has to be in there under state law. We don't put it in there for fun. It has to be there, but it really has no impact. And what is happening here, and I've never seen this happen before, I mean, the school district is really doing, I think, you know, a fair thing, so to speak. Because this tax appeal from the landfill came to light, what the school district is doing is it's saying, okay, even though if the voters approve this proposal, we will not issue any more bonds than would require a 6.26 first year millage levy and a 5.8 average annual levy. And when the bonds get sold, PFM has the capabilities to determine that based upon your current taxable value at the time of the sale, okay? So now to get to the answer to the last question, yes. If at the time we sell the bonds, and by the way, PFM estimates very conservatively. So unless the market really goes sideways, I think there's probably a pretty good chance that you could be able to get the full amount at 6.26 mils. But that's an aside, I'm not making predictions. But let's say it doesn't. Let's say that 6.26 mils and 5.8 average would only get you $35 million bond this year. So I don't think that was the number, but you've got $3 million left. The answer is yes. A future Board of Education could decide, because it's a new board, it could decide, hey, we've got $3 million in our back pocket. We want to issue those bonds. But can you imagine? So school districts are totally strapped. Their operating revenues is based on that 18 mil non-homestead millage and the state aid that they get, the state aid payments that they get from the state. And most school districts are struggling with that to educate their students and pay their teachers. So school districts really depend on these bonding proposals to improve their facilities. And if a Board of Education did that, if it issued $3 million in bonds 10 years from now, it would be generations before this community would put another bond.
Well, hold on, let me just interject. So if there was a part of the project that was removed to stay within this, because they would have to remove a part of the project to stay within the $38 million. I think it's still the intent of the public if it came back 5 years later and did the $3 million. And I'm not speaking for you, Andy, but it's important to note the state would not allow the school district to do a project that was not on that preliminary qualification application. So the school couldn't just come up with a new project.
Yes, no, that's absolutely true. I was just assuming you were talking about the existing project. No, the project
I was specifically talking about the existing.
Yeah, so you can only use the bond proceeds after the bonds are sold and issued for the purposes that are described in the bond proposal. So I'm assuming there would be, if that happens, there would be a portion of the project that wouldn't be able to be done. Yeah,
So is the square footage called out in the bond?
Yes.
So if we build that square footage, they couldn't take that 3.3 million.
Well, good example I can use, so a good example, when these buildings were built in late 50s, early 60s, they were built the last 67 years. So again, you look at construction today and say, do you want full double wide, 12-inch, 8-inch CMU brick all the way up to the top, sloped roofs, you want a 50-year metal roof? If you said, I need to go shave $3 million, guess what? Probably it's not a metal roof, it's more like a shingle roof. You may not have full brick, maybe it's brick up to 8 feet, and then it's an ecosystem. Maybe the square footages, again, they're only 900 square foot classrooms, which by the way, your existing classrooms are 600 or 700 square feet, so about 30% more. But you just can't say, I'm just going to squeeze back down, because then you're not impacting education space. So I think athletics is one of those things where you see a lot of districts, like if it's 38 million, so I will find 3 million, you're lessening the quality. I think that Mason would look for in a new facility the last 50 years. You may have to look at some of those athletic things and say, you know what, let the boosters get the bleachers, but again, you have to come up very creative with $3 million.
Yeah, so that's a great point.
Use that 3.3 million to improve inside the square footage 15 years from now. Say the lights are all jumping 15 years. You could take that 3.3 million and replace all the lights in the entire school.
The answer is yes. I mean, the Board of Education could do that.
It has to be board
Yeah,
And I'm not questioning this board, I don't think that this board is that, that's not my.
Yeah.
I just want to dot my i's.
So, Brad, I appreciate that question really because, and Matt, your answer was right on the spot because what we've learned over history here is there's animosity towards the school at times. They didn't do this, they didn't do that. And that's what we're right here is we can't keep having these battles every so often. This Board of Education, this administration is coming right out saying, we're going to honor the 626 mills. We're going to get this done because we need to become a strong community where we're not battling at each other. And he's exactly right. That Board of Education, if they did that in the future, well, we're back to where we were at a few years ago, where recalls happening.
yeah, and I would add, I'm from a small community in Ohio that did benefit from one of those state,
15 billion.
yes. And I know that in my community, that if a board issued $3.3 million in bonds 10, 15 years later, there would be serious explaining to do. I just don't think that would ever happen.
You know, I have to say, one of the earlier meetings I was at, and I don't think I've ever had one client say this, Superintendent Shaw said, if we don't need the full 38 million, if the project costs come in at $35 million, we're not issuing the 30, and this was before the landfill stuff. We're not issuing 38 million, we're gonna only issue $35 million. I've never had a school superintendent say that once in my career. But he said, we're only gonna issue what we need to do the projects.
I think when we originally started talking about this almost a year ago, it was, if we were at 7 mills, what would that generate? And I think at the end of the day, when the report came out, it was like, you need 38 million. I think you could have gotten 42 million-ish at 7 mills. We also looked at the 2 series, given the district some time to design it, look at the interest rates. I think we actually saved millions of dollars on interest by going to the 2 series. I don't know the exact amount, but I agree with Gary. I mean, I've done this for 25 years.
And the reason we made that statement, for straight clarity, is this. I understand this community. It's back to being practical. Don't just do it to do it, be practical what you're doing. And so that's why we said if we can get this done, that's why we brought SSOE on so early, so we can really look at and get in front of this around the square footage and practicalities of the structure. How will that have an impact right there? And all it takes is some good bidding. And a great example is when we brought SSOE on, we've already saved 1.5% just in that cost. So there's things that we can do inside there to make sure we reduce that, because at the end of the day, the bond loan and the interest is what's going to be on the taxpayers. This Board of Education doesn't want to put all of it right there if we don't have to. So I know I got a couple more questions. Which one of you guys want to answer?
Which one of these are going to be on the ballot? In other words, have you gone to the state? Okay, all these.
The ballot is the ballot.
Yeah, so
Have you gone to the state to say, I was at 291, now I'm not under 237?
Do you want to know that? I mean, the ballot's done.
Yeah, so the ballot is.
No, it's not the ballot stuff.
Okay.
This is the application to the state.
Right.
So the state okayed a certain amount to do a certain thing. And now we're off, instead of 291, we're only going to collect 237. I think that needs to go back to state, number one. And number two, you guys have heard of the school has knew about the dump since May 20th, because they got a registered letter. So when you guys said it didn't have this, well, that's just not true. Yes, it's a registered letter, which we all get them. This one here happened to be from Township, but from a tax representative, if you're an attorney, that you know that we have to get a registered letter.
Did you say May 20th? I'm sorry.
Mason gets one. We all get one.
What date did you say, sir?
May 20th of last year.
So the taxable values they received are certified by each local municipality, correct?
Right.
Okay. So I'm going to just get the question to you. We had knowledge of that letter, I will have to find out what that letter is that you hold.
Well, it's from a tax representative. Like when they file taxes, are you a tax attorney in Michigan?
well.
You can have this copy because you guys already got it ready. So what I'm saying is, when you filled this paperwork out, it was wrong. When you said no, it was actually right. It was actually yes. Then they asked you to put this paperwork with us, and you didn't do it.
Based on the information we had, we went with what we saw.
Based on the information we all had, you didn't fill this out properly.
So, the question becomes is, what
I
are
don't
we?
want to answer, I'll tell you the truth. I think you need to get over your attorney. I wouldn't say nothing about it.
Well, I appreciate it, Gary, because, you know, we've been pretty honest about everything we've done up to here. Everything we've done. So, we'll take that there. Any other questions?
Maintenance has obviously been a public concern. That being said, with the construction of the new school, what measures is the board taking to ensure that the building will be properly maintained over the next 30 years? That way, while most of us sitting in this room who are either going to be retired or looking at retirement shortly, won't be asked for another major long-term.
Well, so two things there. One is our current maintenance staff with the new facility, they're going to get all the training that is required because it's all new equipment. Second thing is, if we allow history to replay itself in the school district, some of you might be young enough, in 60 years from now, it'll be the same situation, okay? You said it early on. Schools in the current funding mechanism by the state of Michigan can handle general maintenance. Window replacement, roofing, things of that sort, that's on the taxpayers, okay? So what would happen is, and we've said this before in the meetings, is at that, in that 20-year marker, 25-year marker, the schools should be coming back and having a conversation around what's our next step. And at that time, this is what we see quite often is, you'll see the bonds redone, you might see a small bond, or you go into a sinking fund. See, when we did the work on these buildings, they were built in the early 60s. The first time that anything was done as far as from the community side of it was 2001 in the sinking fund. 40 years after, they're already up. Okay? We had one sinking fund, went for another sinking fund that was defeated, and we had a bond issue go up in 2000 that was defeated. And then the last sinking fund came up in 2014. Okay? So it's incumbent upon the community, though, down the road, and when these bonds will be sold, they stay the way they are for 10 years, and then at the 10-year marker, a school can start to look at it because they can look at the taxable values, make determinations. Would it be better for the district, for the taxpayers, to make any adjustments there? But I would say to this group, down the road, there has to be a reinvestment. Otherwise, we're going to be staying in the same spot because any of that major work can't be done by the community there. So,
I think some of the trends that we're seeing in the educational spaces for new buildings is lower maintenance on finishes. For instance, if you look at the terrazzo, they did it right. I mean, you don't have to replace it every 10, 15 years like a VCT. Those are one of those cost things. If you said, hey, I really want VCT, I want low maintenance. Again, we have to present the overall budgets to the board, and that's where we work with the architects and through this design process to say, what if there's other options, like for instance, that are no wax option, you get a 25-year warranty. You know, VCT, you get it for $1.50, but you got to wax it 2 or 3 times a year. And so districts are looking at high robust HVAC systems. I'm not saying the ones that are so complicated, you have to go hire a registered engineer to balance the system 4 times a year. It's more simply replacing the filters quarterly or seasonally. We're looking at roof systems. You're looking at lower maintenance items. So again, this is the building that these savings, I think you're reducing your square footage by 40,000 square feet. So just that alone is going to save the district some operation dollars. But from a design standpoint, those are the things that as a district they're going to be looking at is what's that level of finish just to help lower operational dollars, more efficiency in terms of LED lighting and things of that nature.
What is the projected life expectancy? If we were past that, what would the projected life expectancy?
Sure. So from an audit perspective, the useful life calculation for new construction is 39 years. I don't have one client that hasn't used a building for less than 39 years. I think MSBO, which is Michigan School Business Officials, the average age of the buildings across Michigan is about 48 years old. But as Mr. Shaw said, there has to be some sort of reinvestment 20 years from now, 25 years from now. I would assume that the mechanical systems would last 25 years, maybe 30 years, depending on the types of boilers, et cetera. LED lighting, these are 75, 80,000 hour bulbs and things of that nature. The floor finishes, again, if you have 1,000 kids walking through your living room every day, you want to make sure you may want to spend a little more money up front, so you're not having to replace that flooring in that 5 to 10 year frame. But again, through the design process, the board will be making some decisions with that as we go through design.
Yeah, the 6.26 million, that's all it's gonna go up? You guys are saying that you're gonna try to stick to that as far as it's going to go. There's no-
Well, thanks for bringing that question. What we're saying is, when we go to sell the bonds, that we're going to make it work at 6.26 mils. So if that means that interest rate's at 3% or 4%, that's what we're gonna work with. We have no control after that what will happen. Okay, because it takes another housing crash, something could happen. What we're saying is when we would go there, and again, this is for this community, I mean, we made this clear, and I know you'll hold us accountable, is if we select this low growth rate, okay, as the model, that's the number that Carrie puts in there. Now, we will adhere to that. Again, that's for year one. After that, we have no control of knowing what's going to happen growth-wise or any other way.
That's for the next set of bonds. Not, it is going to be a fixed rate once you lock into the loans.
The interest rate?
Yeah.
The interest rate will be fixed, but the millage rate will not be. The millage rate can fluctuate, and, this is my feeling. If Andy were to ask me which one I like the most, it's the 1.5% growth rate, because I always want to be the most conservative. And under this one, I would bet you anything, when you look at your millage rate going down, it's just gonna step down, continue to step down, but that doesn't mean, we had in 2007, 8, all these properties, my house included, got way overinflated and the bubble burst, and my taxable value dropped down. Well, that meant I was paying a little bit higher millage rate to get to the same taxes. So remember, their bond payments aren't going to change. It's just the millage rate that will change to get to that same amount.
Sorry. Yes, sir.
I've heard some parents complaining about leaking roof, mold, and on ceiling tiles falling.
Okay.
Can you elaborate on what structures that's going on in, and to what extent, and when did it start, and what's been done with it since it was reported?
So they're reporting that we're having leaks and we've got mold. Okay, we've got ceiling tiles. So, we have some spots in each of our buildings, at the middle school and in here, that every winter you'll have leaks. Because our roofs are designed where in the winter, they'll just contract, and then in the summertime, they will actually heal themselves. So we have spots that's a natural leak. As far as like ceiling tiles go, when we have those leaks, we change them out. Mold, I can't stand here this very moment and say there's not a drop of mold in our school. You got heat, you've got water, you're gonna have mold.
It seems like a lot of the parents that are voting yes, making a lot of issue about the roof, the leakage, the ceiling tiles falling as a safety concern. Is it a safety concern with ceiling tiles falling during the day? Have any fallen?
Oh,
There you go.
there have been none that's fallen during the school day. But as far as a safety issue, it's more just back to that we're dealing with leaks. And we're going back to whenever we've had leaks, we bring in our Norman Roofing to fix them. And remember, leaks on flat roofs, your leak could be right here, but it started over there as you go to try and find it. So we bring in those guys to do that work there. And again, we, instead of going and spending $1.5 million, $1 million on a new roof from the safety fund, we held off on it, knowing that when we started this work, we needed to figure out what was our next steps there.
Oh, safety, we can walk them.
Yeah, so we've already, in the plan, we've addressed the safety part there. Yes, sir.
You guys actually think it's going to fix boiler systems, my understanding. How was that not done?
So we actually, there was before I got here, there was a list put together of projects, okay? And those projects had priorities and they began doing it. Some of the projects they knew you had to save a lot of money to do it. And so 2 years ago, we were really having conversations around what should we do here? Should we take, and especially at this high school, So we go put a new roof on it, at the same time going, well, we got a heat problem, and we gotta address the heat. Well, we're gonna address the heat down in the tunnels, or we're gonna go up onto the roof. So we're trying to figure out, do you go, you put the heating units on the roof first, then re-roof it, or you roof it, then put the heating units on and cut into it. So the point of it is, once we got to that point where we saw it was gonna be big time stuff, we knew we better start having a bigger conversation on what's our next steps. Rather than going out and go, well, we're gonna go put this roof on, and then just literally waste taxpayer dollars. So that's why we stopped doing major projects until we could see what's gonna what happen here.
What does the heat pump generator here?
$460,000.
Essentially, they asked for the money to fix certain things, neither one of them got taken care
Oh, no, they had multiple items on that list. Yeah, no. There were multiple items on that list. It's on our website for you to see, all items that were done. There was bathrooms, renovations to locker rooms. There was a lot of items on that list. Yes, sir.
Two quick ones. Could you back up to the chart with the rates, please?
Which one?
Okay, one slide earlier, I think. One more. The chart with the, yeah, that. Okay, so I noticed on the second bullet point there that those are national AAA rated bond prices. Do we, does Mason enjoy the luxury of AAA rated rates?
No. So these bonds will
So
be.
this chart means nothing to us.
It does, because all the rates follow this, so we just slightly over that, because the bonds are guaranteed by the state of Michigan, so that would get a AA rating. These are AAA ratings, so it still means something, because what it's still showing is that rates are at absolute low levels.
Okay.
So that's, the perfect, there isn't a Michigan chart, so.
Right. No, I understand. My second question was, so if we end up at the, say, this passes and we end up option one, you kind of addressed that. I think it's common knowledge, we know that the future building will not be anywhere near the quality that we have today. So if we end up at option one, we're gonna have to actually get even below that level of quality, because Mr. Shaw, you mentioned that there was nothing that, really, there's no dollars that could be cut, right? You said maybe the athletics is what we could come out, but other than that, we're just gonna reduce the quality of construction or brick or, whatever it would be to get down to that number. Is that accurate?
We would actually have conversations with SSOE. So 118,000 square feet, okay, that was the number for the new construction. What would happen is, and we're working with SSOE on the way that the school is laid out. So 118,000 is the maximum, but now how do we best use that 118,000 square feet? And if we can reduce that square footage, then we do. And that goes back to the size of your classrooms, to the size of those hallways, to just anything, we can do a deep dive into that list at that point in time. What I can't give you right now is going, well, something, if it's this number, this is what we're gonna do. Because if we were able to pass, if the election was passed and we sold the bonds today, the monies are all there. All we're saying is that with the SSOE and with Plante Moran, we would go literally right through that bond, the plan and figure out. I'll give you an easy example. We know as a school district that we have to bring new electrical service into the school, okay? And that's gonna come at a price tag. And is there a way that we can incorporate that into our general fund bill? Because we know we're gonna save about $300,000 a year. So so when I start talking about what can we do, those will be things that we will figure out. What should we take on, knowing we're gonna save X number of dollars each year as a school district, and that we can apply then and just address. The other part comes down to, there's new furniture in here. Well, how far do you go on the new furniture? You start making decisions more about, maybe not the full square footage, because that's for ever, what are those softer costs that we can deal with?
I think from a design standpoint, if the district's accustomed to having a terrazzo-esque down the hallways, then you want that new look down the hallways for the new construction. You look at carpeting, obviously this is a media center. You may go to a sheet gooder, a linoleum or something that has a 20, 25-year life on it. So we're looking at light kind. So we're not envisioning, nothing against other districts, but some massive 4-story sky, walkway. We want this to be Mason Consolidated Schools facility. So again, keeping that light kind. There will have to be some decisions You get to the metal roofs, okay, what length, gauge of thickness do you want? And there's different thicknesses. Again, pennies are gonna equal nickels equals dollars, et cetera, but at the end of the day, Ms. Strasser, it has to pass, and then there's about an 8 to 12 month process of getting into those details, and doing the physical layouts, and having those board inputs and community inputs of how does this thing lay out on the site. Most importantly is how do you construct it safely, being on a school facility. We've done billions of dollars with existing facilities like that, so. Yes, ma'am.
If this passes, do you know what the timeline would be to have the building complete and all the students and staff here?
So the goal is September of '22, we would all be under one roof. Now, this will be a two-phase, where you'll see the middle school, high school built first, we move the high schoolers in, because this area right here will get torn down. So the goal once finished product, goal is September 22. So I'm gonna
I want to go back to safety again, and ask you about many of the people that were pushing the yes vote on Facebook were talking about their concern with the safety of their children at the school. So do you have any immediate safety concerns about students coming to the building on a daily basis? Is there anything unsafe about any of these structures?
Of course there is. Of course we've got safety issues in our buildings every single day.
And I'm not talking about doors proper, but I mean,
No,
on the structure. The main thing is ceiling trying to fall.
The structure? Hold on. No. Structural safety issues?
Yeah.
I can't get it, I don't know any structural safety issue going on.
Because
Okay,
they
this is
weren't,
gonna fall. When they're talking,
they weren't bringing anything up, they were just saying, the buildings aren't safe for the kids, it's just, the schools need to be replaced, it's a safety issue.
so what parents are alluding to, when it comes to safety, and the safety and security is.
No, not security, structure, they were talking about.
That's the structure side.
Mhm.
You walk into our buildings, you can walk, you get buzzed in, and you can go anywhere you want once you walk in the door. Okay, that's a safety concern. Because there's schools are today putting in secured vestibules. It stops the flow of people through the building easily. In our school, the elementary, and this high school in particular, you can walk right in, hang a right or left, and be gone to any place.
But you're
That's
missing my
safety.
point, I don't mean somebody coming into the school, but another human being harming the town.
Sure.
They're stressing that the buildings aren't unsafe, that's why we need to rebuild, tear down, and rebuild. So,
Well-
is the structure falling down anywhere that it's unsafe?
Is it falling down anywhere?
Yeah.
I would say the spot's falling down. The safety side you do have though is you got uncontrollable heat. You've got right now, I mean, this room is actually feeling pretty comfortable because we turned the heat back on at about 3 o'clock this afternoon. That would be the safety side of it there. But I can't speak to it, man. But from what you're asking is, are we walking around, we're watching the ceilings fall down? No, I don't have ceilings falling down.
Okay,
But when it
that's
comes to
what was
safety side.
emphasized. And then I'm also, so the objective ain't to replace unsafe buildings, which is saved $300,000 a year.
Oh, no. The objective is that if we don't begin to do something to these buildings, because they have not had they haven't had any investment. To say that, the two sinking funds was a large investment in these buildings is not even close to factual. When we talk about we have heating concerns, we control the heat by windows, okay? This is a math problem that we did. Full renovation is $32 million. We can argue all day long, you can scale that bugger back to $20 million, okay? You're still gonna be spending a lot of money on bringing these buildings up to today's standards, which is heat, lighting, and electrical. Roofs, okay? There's where you're gonna go right out of the blocks, secured entrance. So you're gonna that's where your money's gonna go straight out there, and that's gone. Now you're into 90-year-old buildings when it's paid off. So what we're proposing here is, yeah, that number's gonna come up some, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have 50, 60-year-old buildings available to you when it's all said and done, rather than 90-year-old buildings. What I mean by that is that 30 years paid off. So that's the whole thing is, which is the more economical way? Because the argument can be made right there going, okay, you're expecting us to put $20, $25 million into these current buildings, and you're not gonna do anything with education? You're not gonna gonna touch one bit of education. You're gonna still keep a 650 square foot elementary classroom. That elementary, by the way, because I haven't seen any of the presentations, that elementary right now, because all those classrooms go into one two classrooms go into one area, it's called a corridor, you gotta put new hallways on all 3 wings over there. That's at a tune of $1.5 million. Or, you're gonna put an outside door going outside each of those classrooms. Now you're into a safety issue. Multiple doors and windows. So the point where we were at as a board of education, as a school district, was which is the more fiscal responsible approach to what we're doing? Is it a renovation, or is it going K-12 under one roof? That's why we're proposing a K-12 under one roof, because from a sense of using taxpayer dollars, it makes more sense in that model. And yes, does it help us? Yeah, because we're not adding square footage. It reduces our cost.
So the heating issue you talked about, and some of the roof issues you talked about, do you think if you could do it again, would you not replace the gym floor and the bleachers, would you concentrate that money on them?
So if we would have, again, if we go hindsight being 2020, I'm actually thrilled that 20 years ago, we didn't pass that $17 million bond. Because here's why. That elementary and middle school have been added together. Would have increased our square footage, then we've been in a situation still today where, all right, now we're going to make sure we're investing back in these buildings. You're not taking that down. So when the community decided to not do that then, and when we decided that we were going through that list of things to do, all we would have done is had to save money, and as we started doing that second year, started saving money for the roof. And so the point of it is, by going to that gym, and please remember, the first thing that a gymnasium is, it's a classroom. That's the first thing it is. It's not the last thing, which gets used every day, every hour. Then after school, it's used, and we have so many events that go on in there that the community is coming to. So it got addressed right out of the blocks. And so we can, again, through all of this stuff, there's arguments about, well, you should have done this, or you should have done that. I mean, that's been an ongoing argument for our school district. It goes on in every district. I want to get to Derek's question.
Does the school still have a resource officer from Erie Police Department?
Yes, he's in, we're in our second and a half year. This April marks 2 full years.
Thank you.
The resource officer.
Have you looked at, so the building plan we have you looked at any other options? And to be specific, like, we want to move to the parking lot. And to me, that don't make any sense. But why are we moving the parking lot?
So we're moving that parking lot because everything that we do out here in the world of athletics is right here, okay? And so we have a lot of people that come to those events. Now, to bring that point further out, based on what gets approved and the available money, that becomes a conversation, okay?
Okay, I agree with you. So I measured it. And it's closer to the football field or track, there's no doubt.
Right.
But it's a little bit further from the new parking lot to the baseball and softball field, where the people sit. Because ideally, I mean, it'd be nice if our softball and baseball field would turn.
Sure.
And there was a center thing, but, so now the new gymnasium is all the way near the new parking lot. I mean, the old parking lot,
Right.
sorry. So, there's, and by the pool.
Yep.
So if, you know, you got 5 sports that take place in the gym, so it's a further walk from them. You know what I mean?
I do. So what you're really looking at is, when you came in these doors right here,
Yep.
that's the distance it would be to that new gymnasium, same to the pool, okay? That's about where that new entrance would be. But what you're really getting into is, it goes back to that whole thing of cost, and where does things go? And that becomes, if we don't have a full 30 million, that's where you decide. When it comes to the baseball, softball, on that budget shows sidewalks to every bleacher system we have. And so your main entrance is right where you're going in for track and baseball, in for track and football, and then all sidewalks that lead to baseball and to softball. So now we're addressing handicap, everything there. It's, the challenge is that when it comes to, you know, every event we have out here, that's where things are located. So that's, again, back to an idea. Now, back to the cost, that may be an area that we address and go, well, maybe we make it a different change.
So, yeah, I mean, I see the cost out there, and I think your paving cost is high, but I think that particular parking lot cost is low, being that the site's low. In your cost, you have 8 inches of stone, and then you have asphalt. Well, you gotta cut out the topsoil, and that area is already low, so you're gonna probably need 2 feet of stone, and then we're gonna tear out all that parking lot and put dirt in there. And then I also didn't see any drains in the parking lot thing, and then I also didn't see a retention pond. We're doing a new parking lot area, and that would be a fit. So what I'm getting at is, like, let's say that's 1.5 million, and then it's like, I don't know, it's 900,000 on here or whatever now. By the time we pay our interest on it over the 30 years, you know, it's, what's that, 70-some%? I mean, I'm guessing 77, 8%, something like that. But what I'm getting at is, I mean, I think there's things that can be done very simply to get a similar outcome and be much cheaper. I mean, every little bit we spend, we're paying massive amounts of money on it. Also, I mean, I'm all for bigger, better. If we could have enough money to put the whole property under the roof, I'd be for it. But do we really need a track in our gym?
So, yeah, so that walking track, that idea really sparks from looking at it from the lens of handicap, looking at how, by the way, right now, how easy is it for a person that's handicapped to go in and watch a swim meet? Can't do it. So that's some of our conversations around that second story of that walking track is, can we make it now we can open up right next to the pool for a handicap? There will obviously be conversations around what should we do. Is that an item that is going to for sure stay, or is it not? Okay, but we're going to think in terms of, well, what's that true cost to it there?
Do you have a cost on just the track portion of it? And how would it be constructed? I mean, there's like 3 different ways it could be constructed. Are the bleachers going to go up to the track and then the track be flat?
So like we said before, the level of that detail is when it's all said and done. What's our biggest bang for our dollar? I can't say to you right now, go, hey, it's going to be this, because it goes back to working with an architect to go, okay, this is the smartest way to go. What we've committed to regularly is staying inside that budget, and we're going as keeping it as low as possible. And if that means we change out something different to make that work, that's what we do. And that evaluation of, okay, the parking lot, what do we do there? So there'll be a lot of ideas. What you're going to have is the community meetings. And I know we haven't spent any time there. Is this passes, there will be forum groups and times for you to sit down and actually talk out. Okay, this is what I would like to see here, and that's with the students, that's with parents, that's with community members, with the facility. Wayne, did you have a question? No. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So in this proposal, is there anything about adding technology into the classrooms or adding any sort of like vocational programs in the high school?
Yep. So on the technology side, that is already we're really doing a lot of that through our tech fund that we already have. So we're not, because the voters have already given us that enhancement millage, and that's when I talked about the monies that we have, the $500,000 we'll have saved. We already have some items that are going to go over to the new building. If you look right up over here, you're going to see an AP unit for wireless. Those were just put in, so those are going. And so there is technology obviously into this plan, but it's getting more done through our tech plan we already have and the monies that we have there. Now, what was that second question?
Are we adding any sort of like vocational programs or anything for the high school?
So, Mr. Bates and I have had a conversation around, do we add a program? And so now that's a conversation with us working with our ISD. The one we've talked about adding into that high school is in the medical field area. But again, like everything, many things are happening. The state this year has changed vocational education and what they're paying for. And in the county, they're seeing a 32% reduction in monies available. So fortunately for our school, it's not going to hit us bad, but we have 3 large high schools that it's going to hit them pretty bad. And that information came out today. So as far as us being able to add programs, it's more of it looking at what other schools have. We already have cooperative agreements for our kids to go to vocational education programs at Monroe or at Bedford, even Dundee, if they would like to. Yes, sir.
Is your maintenance superintendent?
What's that?
Is your maintenance superintendent here tonight?
Any other questions tonight? I appreciate everybody coming. Remember, March 10th is the election. Thank you.
I don't know, or yes.